All right, my friends, welcome. When chaos meets clarity, the August reset, embracing change without rushing the season. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Organizing with Ease. I am so glad that you're here. August has always felt a little bit of an interesting month for me. Summer isn't yet over, but you can still feel a new season beginning. It's like one of those in between months where we're still enjoying longer days, vacations, slower routines, and yet we can still sense that life is about to shift. This year feels especially meaningful because my youngest daughter is getting ready to start her senior year of high school. Honestly, I'm wondering where the time went. It feels just like yesterday I was shopping for her first backpack, packing lunches, helping with the homework, rushing, out the door for those school drop-offs, camps. And now, yes, we're talking about college visits, senior pictures, and what's the next chapter? What is it going to look like? So, as a mom, I have to say it is really emotional. Part of me wants to slow down everything and hold on to those last few weeks of summer just a little bit longer. And I want to enjoy those slower mornings, family dinners, and the little moments that often become memories that we cherish the most. Maybe you're feeling the same or somewhat similar. Maybe your children are heading back to school. Maybe they're older and they're living at home. Maybe you're an empty nester wondering how the house became so quiet. Or perhaps you don't have children at all and you're just preparing for a busy season at work, launching a new project, growing your business, or simply trying to establish routines that make everyday life feel a little bit more manageable. Whatever season you're in, August has a way of inviting us to pause, not to rush into the fall, but not to stay stuck in summer either. Instead, it gives us an opportunity to appreciate where we are going to be gently preparing for. And what is that? The next. So over the past month, I would say, on social media, we've been exploring a series that I have called When Chaos Meets Clarity. So each Friday, we built up one simple idea. First, we talked about creating space, not just in our homes, but in our minds and our schedules. But then we talked about how clarity doesn't mean life is perfect. We did not. Life is always going to be messy. It's going to be those simple systems and routines that help us find our way back when things feel overwhelming. Last week, we talked about how clarity creates confidence when we know where things are, when your routines support you, and when your home works for you instead of against you. So you begin trusting yourself again. And finally, we talked about momentum because once you have the space, systems, and confidence, you stop feeling like you're constantly having to start over. You begin moving forward with intention, that one step at a time. As we've reflected on those conversations, I realized something. Those four ideas don't just apply to organizing, they actually apply to every season of life. And August may be the best example of that all. It's that bridge between slowing down and gearing up, between enjoying today and preparing for tomorrow. So, between the chaos of change and the clarity that helps us move through it a little bit with ease, today I want to talk about something and I want to take everything that we've been talking about over the past month and bring it together in what I'm calling the August reset. It's just a conversation about embracing the season that you're in, creating routines that truly support your life, and preparing for what's next without rushing the moments that matter the most. So grab your coffee or your tea, settle in, and let's dive right in. So why August feels like a fresh start. Have you ever noticed that August always feels like a second new year? Yes, I said that right. Second new year. Not because the calendar says so, but because our routines naturally begin to shift. Vacations start winding down, calendars start filling up. Morning alarms become a little bit more consistent. Businesses start planning for their final quarter of the year. Parents prepare for back to school. Professionals return from summer travel and jump right back into those projects. And even if your household doesn't revolve around a school calendar, there's something about August that encourages a reset. It's a chance to take a look of what has been working over the summer and what hasn't. Maybe your mornings have become more relaxed and you realize you want to keep a little of that slower pace moving into the fall. Maybe your evenings have become way too hectic and you're craving a routine that brings more calm to the end of the day. Or just maybe you've been so busy enjoying summer, oh yes, that the laundry, paperwork, even the pantry have quietly gotten away from you. But here's the good news, my friend. You ready? You don't need to overhaul your entire home before Labor Day. Definitely not. You don't need to organize every closet or deep clean every room. Because sometimes the biggest transformations begin with simply asking yourself, what's that one thing I can do today that will make my tomorrow feel a little bit easier? Because that's where clarity begins. Not with perfection, not with doing everything, but with that one intentional decision that creates what? A little bit more ease in everyday life. So when we come back, I want to talk about that chaos, how it really looks, right? Because it isn't always that pile on that kitchen counter when we do come back, right? Or that overflowing closet. Sometimes it's the biggest clutter. What we carry, it isn't physical at all. And once we recognize that, that's when we begin to see where clarity begins. That's it. Because guess what? When clarity and chaos, it looks a little bit different than clutter. Yes, it does. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that both in my own home, I have to admit, yes, and while working with clients, is that chaos doesn't always look the way that we think it does. When we hear the word chaos, all right, so I'm going to ask you, when you hear the word chaos, what do you think of? We often think of a picture of like overflowing clutter, closets, cluttered countertops, or stacks of paper on a dining room table, right? Or just utter chaos of just like running around like you're walking on a treadmill. Just keep going, keep going, keep doing, or like even a gerbil, right? And yes, sometimes that's exactly what it looks like. But more often than not, the clutter we see is simply a symptom of something that's much deeper. Sometimes chaos is invisible. It shows up constantly feeling behind. Maybe it's opening your calendar and feeling overwhelmed because before the day has even begun. It's maybe walking into your home after work and not knowing where to start. It's carrying that mental load of remembering everyone's appointments, birthdays, school forms, because of course they have like 20 pages that you need to fill out, the grocery list, the passwords, the bills, and everything else that life throws at you. Maybe it's a career change, a move, a promotion, working from home after years of being in the office. What about adult children moving back home? Yes, that is the thing now. That's been happening. A parent who suddenly needs more support than maybe last year, preparing yourself for retirement, or simply just realizing that the routines that you lived and you relied on for years, they're just not working anymore. Because why? Life changes. And when life changes, our home and our systems need to what? Change right along with it. And that's why I always say organizing isn't about creating a picture perfect home. It's about creating a home that supports the life that you're living today, not the life that you lived 5, 10 years ago. I see this all the time, even in my own home. But now I'm transitioning because remember, this is my last year. And I can honestly say then I will be an empty nester. Woo! Oh my goodness. Okay. So tell me, this is where I'm going to ask you something. All right. So this is what has happened. Tell me if you've also said this to yourself. I used to have a really great routine. And then there you have it. What happened to it? But because why? That routine that used to work, it didn't, because those are when the kids were little, or before they started working remotely, or before they became caregivers for a parent. Maybe it's before they launched a business. I might be able to relate to that one. They're trying to make yesterday's system fits today's life, and that is just so exhausting. As I prepare for my daughter's senior year, I found myself thinking about this too. Our family routines look nothing like they did when both of my girls, were in elementary school. Our mornings are different, our evenings are different. Even our conversations around the dinner table have totally changed. And honestly, that's exactly how it should be, because growth changes what? It changes us. And that's not failure. New seasons require new systems. That's life. So, one question I encourage you to ask. You ready? And that is, and I'm going to be asking myself, because I've been asking myself this lately. So I'm going to ask you for this too, right? Does your home support the life that you're living today? Not the life that you had 5 years ago, not the life that you hope to have someday, but it's the life that you want to be living right now. Because clarity begins when we stop trying to force old routines into new seasons. It begins when we give ourselves permission to adjust, to simplify. Then we let it go. Because what? Because it no longer serves us. And to create systems that make sense for where we are today. Remember our social media series. Remember that one. Week 1 was about creating space. Week 2 was about creating simple systems. Week 3 was about building confidence. Week 4 was creating those momentums. But none of those happened because your home is perfect. They happened because why? You created enough clarity to move through life's inevitable changes with a little bit more grace and a lot less stress. And sometimes the most organized thing you can do isn't buying another bin, a basket, or labeling another container. Sometimes it's simply acknowledging that you're in a new season, allowing your home, your routines, your expectations to what? Evolve with you. So, as I was preparing for today's episode, I actually came across a couple of studies, and I really put this into perspective because researchers have found that when we're mentally overwhelmed, our brains become less efficient at making decisions. And guess what? That is, again, decision fatigue. And it affects everything from what we eat for dinner to whether we're putting the laundry away today, or we tell ourselves, we'll do it what? We'll do it tomorrow. Think about how many decisions you make in a single day. What you wear, what you eat, the emails to answer, meetings, family schedules, errands, work deadlines, client projects, and it goes on, right? By the time you get home, your brain has what? Has been making decisions all day long. So when you talk about a cluttered room, your brain doesn't see the stuff. It sees dozens of what? Additional decisions wanting to be made. Where does this go? Should I have this? Do I have time to do? Oh, wait, no wonder. Do we feel overwhelmed? Well, no wonder we feel overwhelmed, right? Another survey found that 8 out of 10 people say that a cluttered home negatively affects their mental well-being. I can so attest to that. And while almost everyone reports feeling calmer and happier after organizing a space, because remember, it's all about that feeling. That makes such perfect sense to me, doesn't it? Because organizing isn't just changing our environment, it's changing how we experience the environment. That mental load we don't talk about. And then there's something else, that mental load. Sometimes we carry it so much in our minds that we don't even realize how heavy it has become. By remembering appointments, keeping tracks, how about those notes, paying bills, organizing everything that you possibly can for whatever might be happening, remembering things, scheduling appointments, thinking about the holidays that you're planning for the months ahead, because we are in August and September, October, November, December. Oh, there we go, right? Preparing for the travel, making sure that there's food for your dogs. Remember that the air conditioning company is coming next Tuesday. It is endless, my dear. It is. No wonder we feel exhausted sometimes. The clutter isn't always in the kitchen counter. Sometimes it's in our heads. And that's why I believe organizing is all about much more than just decluttering. It's about creating systems that help us carry some of that mental load for us. So when your calendar is organized, your pantry is organized, your entryway has a landing zone, your paperwork has a home, your routines become automatic. You stop having to remember where everything it has to go, because why? Your systems start remembering it for you. And that is such an incredible feeling of being free. Do you not agree? Are you shaking your head on that one? I would certainly hope so. So, as I mentioned earlier, my younger daughter is getting ready to start her senior year of high school. And lately I found myself reflecting on how much our home has changed over the years. When my girls were little, our mornings looked different. They would pack their backpacks lined up by the door. After school activities, bedtime routines, everything revolved about getting everyone where they needed to be. Fast forward to today. Our mornings are so much more quieter. My daughter is so much more independent. The conversations around the dinner table have completely changed. Even the spaces in our home have so evolved. If I could share with you some before and after pictures, you'd be so surprised about that. What worked for our family 10 years ago simply doesn't work today. And honestly, again, that is where we should be. That is how our homes should be evolving as our lives evolve. The goal isn't to keep recreating systems that work in another season. The goal is to create systems that support the season you're living in now. So I hear this from clients time to time. And you might also say this to yourself, but they say to me, Deanna, I used to be so organized. I don't know what happened. Did that happen to you too? And after talking for a while, we usually discover that really nothing happened. Life happened, a promotion happened, a new baby, a new addition to the family, a move, a dog. Maybe you got not only one dog, but two dogs and a cat. Working remotely, adult children moving back home, retirement, divorce, a health challenge, or simply realizing that life looks very different than it did 5 years ago, even last year. And of course, your systems need to change because you're not the same person. Your household isn't the same household. So trying to make old routines fit into a new season is like trying to wear shoes that you've outgrown. Can you relate to that one? Can you picture that one? And eventually, what happens? They become a little bit uncomfortable and your feet hurt. One of my favorite quotes that I love from a client. So this is what happens. You ready? They ask the question, does your home support the life that you're living in today? And I think about this and I'm like, yes, to me now, because I have evolved. And what about you? And that it's not the life that you had. It's not the life that you hoped you have someday, but today. Because why? Clarity begins with honesty. Maybe it's time to let go of those routines that no longer serve you. Maybe it's time to simplify. Maybe it's time to stop trying to keep up with unrealistic expectations. Or just maybe it's simply time to give yourself a permission to create a home that works for you and your life instead of someone else's. Because when you create systems that fit the season that you're in, what do? You create space, you create confidence, and eventually you create momentum. So if August is inviting you into a season of transitions, I have a couple of questions for you. You knew that was going to happen, right? So here you go. You ready? How do you and how will you prepare for what's next to come without rushing through the season that we're in? Because I don't know about you, but I am not quite ready to say goodbye to the summer yet. I'm just not. Are you? Are you shaking your head saying, absolutely not? I just so want to still enjoy summer. Well, I was thinking, and I keep coming back to this one simple thought. Why are we always in such a hurry to get to the next season? Why are we? It seems like every year, somewhere around the middle of July, stores are already filled up with back to school supplies. Fall decorations begin to slowly show up on those shelves. And before we know it, people are talking about the holidays. And while there's nothing wrong with planning ahead, absolutely not. And I actually encourage it. I also think that there's something to be said about being in the moment, like in the present. But because we're always focused on what's next, we kind of risk the missing of what's happening like right now. So August gives us that unique opportunity to do both. We can enjoy the final weeks of summer while gently preparing for this, the season ahead. It doesn't have to be the one or the other. In fact, that's what organizing is about. It's not about rushing through life. It's about creating enough structure that you can actually slow down and enjoy it, because that's what we want to do. So for me, that's exactly what the season feels like. As I watch my daughter prepare for her senior year, I'm finding myself wanting to savor these ordinary moments and a little bit more of those family dinners, the conversations, and those spontaneous summer evenings, the routines that before long will naturally begin to change. And maybe there's a season in your life that you're trying to hold on to as well. Or perhaps you're looking ahead with excitement at one new opportunity, maybe a new job, a move, a retirement, or just simply a fresh start. So, whatever your story looks like, my friend, my hope is that you won't feel pressure to rush through today just to prepare for tomorrow. Instead, let us use August for what it really is, and that is a bridge. It's a chance to actually reflect on where we've been, appreciate thoughtfully preparing for what's next. Because when we approach change, what happens? With intention instead of urgency, that's when chaos begins to become what? It gives us a way of clarity. Staying in the summer mode without preparing for what's next. That is one of the biggest misconceptions about being organized, is that you always have to be planning the 3 steps ahead. But why should you? The truth is, organizing isn't about constantly preparing for the future. It's about making the present feel manageable. So I think August reminds us that there is nothing better than any other month. Yes, Labor Day is just around the corner. Yes, schedules will just become a little bit busier. Yes, routines will begin to shift. But today, it's still summer. So before we jump into that fall checklist, my friends, and holiday planning, I want to encourage you to embrace what's left of the season. Still take that weekend trip. Have dinner outside. Read a book that's been sitting on your nightstand probably at the summer and you've always wanted to read it. And you're like, no, I have. Take that book, read it. Invite friends over for a simple barbecue. Watch the sunset. Going for an evening stroll. Create the memories, not because because your calendar says so, but because you should. Because these ordinary moments often become the ones that we remember the most. And at the same time, my friend, there's value in gently preparing for what's ahead. Not with pressure, but with perfection. And what? And with intention. So that could look a little bit different. Like it could be taking inventory of school supplies, office essentials before you actually need them. Maybe it's refreshing your family calendar, updating the morning routines, or organizing your workspace. I just so love doing mine. It gives me like such a fresh sense. But you do want to ask yourself another question. What's that one small thing that you could do this week that will make September feel a little bit easier? So remember, it's not about overhauling your entire home before Labor Day. It's about making these small adjustments that support the life that you're stepping into. Because it's those small adjustments that what create momentum. Momentum is what carries us through the new season with confidence instead of overwhelm. One intentional step at a time. And that's how lasting change happens. Step by step, little by little. So you're ready for this weekly's challenge before we wrap up? Okay, so I do want to say that I want to call this like the August reset. So set your timer for at least 20 to 30 minutes this time, just sometime this week. Grab a notebook, your favorite cup of coffee or tea or whatever it might be, and find a quiet place to reflect and ask yourself these questions. You ready? So if you are you doing something else? Just come back, circle back with me and just listen and hear out these 5 questions. All right. So what feels chaotic in my life right now? Not in just your home, but in your schedule, your routines, your work, or even your mindset. Number 2, What's the one area of your home, my home, that creates unnecessary stress? Maybe it's the kitchen counter where everything seems to land, your entryway, your closet, your home office. Or perhaps it's actually maybe your digital clutter, an overflowing inbox, a calendar that feels impossible to manage. Number 3, what's the one system that no longer is serving any purpose this season of your life, my life? Because remember, what worked 5 years ago, even last summer, may not be what I need today. So give yourself permission to adjust. Number 4, what do I want more of as we move into the fall? So think about that. What have you been doing? You want more family dinners? You want more quiet mornings? Do you want more time outside? More margin in your schedule, less rushing. Write it down. Number 5, what's the one small step that I can take this week? Literally this week. Not 10, not 20, but one. Because that one intentional step leads to what? Another. And before you know it, it's built momentum. Maybe that's clearing the one drawer, setting that landing zone, preparing meals for the week, or maybe even cleaning out your work bag, backpack, your purse, whatever it might be. But at least schedule that. Schedule also 15 minutes an evening for sure to do a simple reset. I'm telling you, your future self, your future morning will actually say thank you to yourself. So whatever it is, but you have to keep it realistic, okay? Remember, progress over perfection. So we did talk a lot today about where we started over the past months, about that when chaos meets clarity. But today we brought all of these conversations together. We talked about organizing is so much more than decluttering a space. It's about creating a home and a room actually to breathe, creating systems that support you, building confidence through small, consistent habits, and create a momentum that creates you into whatever season comes next. A time to enjoy the last few weeks of summer without what? Feeling guilty, while gently preparing for routines and opportunities that lie ahead after Labor Day. Whether you're sending your kids back to school, watching them to begin a new chapter, like I am, navigating an empty nest, caring for the aging parents, growing your career or for your business, or simply looking for more peace in your everyday life, remember this. Your home should grow with you. Your routines should support you. And your routines and your systems should evolve as your life changes. You don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to have that perfectly organized home. You simply have to take the next right step. Because guess what? When clarity meets chaos, or chaos meets clarity, you create space, you create simple systems, you create confidence, you create momentums, and ultimately, you create more ease in your everyday life. So, my friends, until next week, because as we continue through August, we're going to keep going, keep exploring how to create more routines that evolve with our lives, embrace transitions with intention, and building organizing systems that aren't just beautiful, because that's what we want, but we also want to make them what? Sustainable. So take a deep breath, enjoy the season that we're in, and why don't we just say, until next week?